If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today. Piers Morgan debated Steven Crowder. And apparently Steven Crowder took enough time off from drinking dog to show up and actually do this debate. So proud of him for that. That takes a lot of strength. So good for him. That was loud.
Welcome back to Uncensored. Last week I criticised Elon Musk's decision to allow the massacre-denying conspiracy theorist Alex Jones to return to X, formerly Twitter. Some people weren't happy. They included the influential conservative personality Steven Crowder. This is what he had to say on his show, Louder with Crowder, about me.
This brings us to Piers Morgan's.
First of all, if you call your name Louder with Crowder, like you've made a Dr. Seuss version rhyme. At this point, I already hate you.
He hosted Alex Jones on his very own program this year. Piers Morgan doesn't understand what freedom of speech is. Piers Morgan has also hosted Suhail Shaheen, the Taliban spokesperson. Jeez. Wahid Asif Shaita, an Islamist extremist leader. Jeremy Corbyn, the anti-Semitic Labour Party leader. Just Piers, stop it. I'm sorry. Fraud. There we go.
Well, in the spirit of hosting very controversial people on my free speech platform, I'm now joined by Steven Crowder, who can call me a free speech hypocrite to my face. Mr. Crowder, good day to you. How are you?
Well, thank you, Piers. Merry Christmas. And let me say off the bat, I do actually appreciate about you. Your audience may not know how rare this is, that you do these interviews live, you don't chop them up, you actually have a discussion, and I've been advocating for that.
Instantly saving face. I love that, by the way, when you're like, this guy's a piece of shit. And then the minute you get on their show, you're like, listen, let me just say that I really respect the fact that you're really honest. You know, you're genuine, dude. You're authentic. And my audience can see that. It's like the minute you're face to face, you're super friendly and nice and accommodating. It's like, it's so transparent to me.
My whole life, so really.
That's why I make a point to, whenever I get on an interview with somebody who I've talked shit about, to the first thing I say, be like, just let it be known to the audience watching, you're
I appreciate it. Those are steps in the right direction.
Well, they are. And to be honest with you, the debate about what constitutes free speech and whether there should be limits and if there should be, what they are, I think is really interesting. And a lot of people have strong opinions about this. And I'm perfectly happy to be proven wrong, or to at least have a debate with someone who's got strong views that don't necessarily tally with mine. So I welcome you to the programme. Let's start with your assessment that I'm a free speech hypocrite. So articulate to me why you believe that.
I believe the word I used there was fraud.
You earlier used hypocrite.
Did I earlier? Okay, I don't remember saying it, but I'll take your word for it.
This is why, Crowder, you shouldn't record your videos when you're drunk, pal.
To some degree, I believe it. Look, I think that in hosting a show uncensored, and I can't see you, but I know you put up the very festive holly leaf on the globe there. It is incumbent upon you. You will say, I believe in the concept of free speech. Now, I'll be very clear in my definition of free speech. It's the constitutional definition of freedom of speech. All speech is permissible outside of a crime. And we have very clear parameters, and these have been affirmed by the Supreme Court, as to what that is.
So we're instantly diluting the conversation here, because there's a difference between what is legally permissible speech versus what is generally socially acceptable speech, right? There's a huge difference there. And what Crowder is doing is he is purposely diluting this, because it's easier to be like, well, the Constitution says that I can literally say the N-word if I want to, and it doesn't matter what you dumb hoes say. It's easier to argue that. But what the argument really is what is the acceptable thing to say within within these social parameters and within the parameters set by advertisers, more or less. Because a lot of the times these conservatives end up in hot water because of what they've said, largely because of the fact that advertisers don't like associating their brand with whatever dumb shit this conservative is rambling on about this time.
A proactive call for violence. The crime is not the speech. The crime is the action causing violence on purpose. Outside of that, Everything is permissible. But for a show uncensored, and I know that you said there's a difference between across the pond there, and obviously in the United States, we have a First Amendment that you don't. How would you define freedom of speech?
Well,
What
I
is
don't
permissible?
think, I don't think we're as far apart as you think. I mean, you talk about the First Amendment not protecting, for example, crime. It's a little bit more complicated. For example, it doesn't protect you if you deliberately defame somebody. And my argument about Alex Jones in particular was that he's just been punished with over $1 billion fine in one of the biggest defamation cases in modern American history for deliberately telling lies about the families of the poor victims of the Sandy Hook massacre.
Oh, please. I really, really want to hear Crowder try and defend Alex Jones here. Please. Please, Crowder, do it.
Sustained period of time, which led to them getting direct harassment and other criminal activity. So I was joining all the dots there of his particular situation, and I concurred with Elon Musk's original view when he was asked about it when he first bought Twitter last year, which was
Why does Crowder look like he's literally about to like shit himself?
original view.
What is he doing?
When he was
He's
asked
like-
about it when he first bought Twitter last year, which was he was not going to allow him back on. He's now changed his mind, but my opinion was based on the Constitution of the United States not protecting you if you are guilty of defamation.
Well, okay, so I'm going to have to take the round.
Crowder, he's like, okay, let me like take in all this stuff you just said. Like he looks like he's drunk right now. Are you okay, Crowder?
Well, okay, so I'm going to have to take the rounds out of that magazine from how loaded that question was and so much misinformation there. And that's the beauty of the freedom of speech. You can say that, you can speak misinformation, and you have the right to, for example, saying he knowingly lied. Look, I'm not in the business of defending everything that Alex Jones,
Alex Jones genuinely believed in his hardest of hearts that the Sandy Hook shooting was staged, okay? That, along with the fact that they're turning the frogs gay, two things that Alex Jones holds fundamental in his heart. I don't care if you believe it sincerely. I don't care if you're doing it for clicks. If you're lying and you're causing harassment to a family who lost their child to a school shooting from some crazy lunatic who's rambling on about how actually this is the secret elites carrying out a secret school shooting, then f*** you. No, I don't care if he genuinely believed it or not. It's you. It doesn't matter.
The business of defending everything that Alex Jones has said, okay? But if you're going to say the 22 minutes out of 8,000 hours of broadcast time for which he apologized.
Yes, 22 minutes could have been defamation out of that 8 hours time or whatever you said.
Acknowledge that he was wrong constitutes what you are saying is proactively lying. That is a very dangerous precedent to set, and it's not accurate.
Hang on, Stephen.
It's not accurate.
Stephen,
Did Alex Jones ever actually genuinely admit that he was wrong?
he did deliberately lie for a sustained period of time, for years, about these families. He knew Sandy
Tell me how he
Hook.
deliberately lied.
He knew that
Tell me how he deliberately lied.
deliberately lied. And he was found to have deliberately lied.
Tell me how he deliberately lied.
And by the way, in his defense, he
Tell
tried
me how
to,
he deliberately lied, please.
In his defense, he tried to play the First Amendment card, and it was rejected by the judge. Rejected.
Tell me how he deliberately lied, please.
Because he knew that it wasn't a hoax. He knew the massacre had happened.
Incorrect.
Let's listen to what he said.
That's incorrect.
Let's play what he said.
He's actually doing the thing. Just let it be known, okay, that Crowder's argument right now is that Alex Jones is actually so far gone dumb as shit that he didn't know he was lying.
Hook, it's got inside job written all over it. Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. People just instinctively know that there's a lot of fraud going on. But it took me about a year with Sandy Hook to come to grips with the fact that the whole thing was fake.
Whole thing was fake, repeatedly. That's a series of different shows he did.
You still haven't answered. You still haven't answered. That doesn't prove that he knowingly lied anything.
But
Look, Alex Jones is wrong
Stephen,
about a lie.
You're a very
Alex
smart.
Jones is wrong about a lie.
Stephen, you and I disagree.
But he's also
Stephen, you and I disagree. Hang on. I'm going to respond to you. You and I disagree about many things. We agree about many too, right? But on this point, you're a very smart guy. I wouldn't question that for a moment. You and I both know.
I would question that.
Alex Jones knew that was not faked Sandy Hook. You and I both know that.
So I have to spit the words out that you just tried to place in my mouth. I do not know that. I don't agree with the premise, and you have yet to prove it. Here's the beauty, though.
I don't have to prove it.
Even if you were
The
to
court
commit
proved
defamation, even if no, it didn't, and even
It did.
assuming
It
that
found
you
him
don't
guilty
discuss
of
the caps
defamation.
with your audience, and I'm going to continue speaking as though we're having a dialogue. Even assuming that you don't discuss the caps, that he would never pay out the far lower settlement that they have decided they would allow, considering this will go to a superior court and will get thrown out, even if you allow all of those things. Here's the beauty of the First Amendment. Here's the beauty of the First Amendment. Even if you at one point commit defamation, you still don't forfeit your right to speak going forward.
You don't.
You don't lose
I
a
agree.
fundamental human right.
I agree.
And that's not why he was banned from. That's not why he was banned from Twitter.
I
you know that.
He was banned.
What? Crowder's just like changing the subject. Did you know that just if you get hammered for defamation, it doesn't mean that you're like literally gonna get duct tape put over your face? Meaning you can still talk?
He was banned from Twitter for having a pop at some guy from CNN. I don't care about that. I'm more interested in why Elon Musk tweeted when he bought Twitter and was asked, will you bring back Alex Jones? He said, no, I won't allow somebody back on, having gone through the pain himself of a child dying in his own arms, one of his children. He wasn't going to allow someone who profited from the pain of dead children to be back on the platform. He then changed his mind, which he's allowed to do. He owns the platform. X is a private company owned by Elon Musk. He can do what he likes with it. But they also have a series of rules which are available on their website, which you can check about what is allowed and not allowed. And they will deplatform you if you transgress those rules. And my point to you is that the situation with Alex Jones is that he was found guilty in an American court of defamation. And yes, it's entirely down to Elon Musk that he can bring him back. But I agree with the first version of Elon Musk's decision-making, not the second one based on a completely undemocratic poll he put on his own Twitter feed.
Well, I agree with you that it shouldn't be left to a democratic poll because the First Amendment is not subject to a vote.
Right. But you accept the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution has a number of things which are excluded from protection, whether it's child pornography, fraud, defamation. There's a whole list of things which you'll simply.
But that has nothing to do with speech.
No, but you're conflating.
Piers.
But I think you've mischaracterized what I said then, because I've never said he hasn't got a right to say what he wants. He can say what he likes. I believe fundamentally in anyone's right to say whatever they want. The question is accountability. And the U.S. Constitution, which you don't think I know anything about, but actually I know a lot about. And I'm a huge...
I didn't say you don't know anything about it. I really don't believe that. I know that you have studied it.
From that same show you did, you basically said, I don't know much about the U.S. Constitution because I'm not American. And that's fine. But I have lived and worked in America for 20 years. I have tried to really get a handle on the U.S. Constitution. And on the issue of the First Amendment, it is a complicated thing. It's not as simple as saying you can say whatever you want. Well, it is, because it doesn't allow the unfettered free speech but with protection that you're suggesting it does.
It absolutely does.
It doesn't.
It absolutely does, barring, would you like me to explain, barring what I've already outlined. Actual criminal behavior calling for violence against others.
I legitimately think Crowder may have taken a laxative before going on to this interview.
People. For example, Pierce, look, I've already
legitimately.
Actual criminal behavior calling for violence against other people. For example, Pierce, look,
but
you know that
defamation.
you have been, and I'm saying this in your defense. For example, you made your joke about being a two-spirited penguin, right? I thought it was cute. I think it was funny, and I understand the point that you were trying to make, okay?
I feel like a guy who just got like stuck in front of a sitcom that I haven't been watching for the last like 4 seasons, and I'm just like, what the is going on? Crowder's like, listen, I know your joke about being a non-binary penguin, okay? I'm like, what? I don't know this joke.
You have had people accuse you of creating violence against trans. You know that, and we know it's absurd. So who defines what is actually calling for violence, or if you
but here's
basically in a roundabout way maybe causing violence? No, unless you called for violence.
No, but you keep saying that
you were a two-spirited
penguin. But you keep saying that your only barrier on free speech is crime.
I like how Crowder's just like trying to radically change the subject right now. This has nothing to do with anything.
Yes.
And I keep reminding you that Alex Jones was found guilty of defamation, and that is one of the things that's not protected by the First Amendment.
No, it's not protected in a you can have civil damages, and your First Amendment rights don't cease to exist. In other words, you can pay. You can pay the piper for what you have done in that individual instance. So if someone at some point, if someone accuses you of defamation, and let's say has a suit levied against you that actually, by God, is successful, let's say that, does that forbid you from speaking publicly thereafter?
No,
No,
of
you
course
don't
not.
lose
No,
it. It's
but
a
it-
fundamental-
Nobody's making this argument. He's just randomly. He's like, did you know that just if you get sued for defamation doesn't mean that you actually lose the right to go and adopt a puppy? Well, just if you get sued for defamation doesn't mean you're not allowed to talk anymore. No shit, buddy. But honestly, I kind of wish it was. I kind of wish it was the case, because then I would sue you for defamation, so you would have to shut the fuck up.
human right.
Not at all, but it does allow, I'm exercising my rights to free speech to say I think he shouldn't be allowed back on X, which was the position of the owner of X until last week. So my point is that Elon Musk has made 2 judgment calls about
Well,
this.
that's also partially because Elon Musk is literally like an insecure little bitch. Like, he unironically caves to peer pressure nonstop.
One I agreed with and one I didn't. And I'm exercising my free speech rights to say I don't agree with it.
You are, and I completely support your right to that. The problem is Elon Musk changed his mind in the face of new information. And if we want to have productive dialogues,
What is that new information, Crowder? Please enlighten me.
we need to. You know what? This is one thing I often ask. And by the way, I think that none of this is a gotcha for Twitter clicks. I hope to God it's not. How often, when you were on CNN, or how often when you were on your morning show there in the UK, or how often do you see on any news network someone say, you know what, new information came out and I was wrong? And I say that because you've done it, and I appreciate it. You said, you know what, if I knew what I know now about the COVID vaccine, specifically that if you get the COVID vaccine, you cannot transmit it.
Yeah.
If I knew that that was incorrect, I wouldn't have espoused the views that I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we're just watching 2 fighting at this point. Like, unironically. If you think the COVID vaccine was like, it doesn't stop transmission. Yeah, it does. Because it reduces the viral load that you expend when you're coughing, etc. So if you're taking the vaccine, you're less likely to spread it. Just if it doesn't reduce the viral load necessarily does not mean that it doesn't reduce the likelihood of it actually spreading to other people, because it reduces your likelihood of getting it in the first place. And obviously you have to catch it before you can spread it.
And I think the problem that we have in today's society is not wanting to allow people to be wrong, to make mistakes. In the realm of comedy, look, good jokes and bad jokes come from the same place. Sometimes you have to risk something and it's not funny.
but I agree
Sometimes
with
you
you
have
about
to
all
express
that.
an opinion.
Yeah, but I agree with you about all that.
Sure.
I agree with that. I tell you, that's really the bedrock of this show. But I come back again to why I had a particular issue with the Alex Jones thing, is that unlike the other circumstances you're describing, in his case, he was found guilty of a serious defamation against the Sandy Hook families. He was fined over $1 billion. So far, he's not paid a dime of that money. And, you know, Elon Musk has made 2 calls on it. Like I said, the first one, I agreed with. I don't think that people like Alex Jones should be allowed an unchallenged, unfettered public platform to spew lies which are done deliberately, in my estimation, to spew lies.
Unchallenged?
Are
you out of your tree, sir?
He's
Have you been on
unchallenged.
X?
Has your mind been melded?
It's a cesspool
No, no.
where anyone can say anything they
people
like.
can reply to him, but no one can have a direct challenge to Alex Jones, like I did when he came on my show.
Yep, as we know, responding to people on Twitter is the same as, like, directly challenging someone's ludicrous claim. Yep. Exactly the same, actually.
You picked out, for example, that he came on my show, Jeremy Corbyn, Taliban spokesman, and so on. Yes, because in each of those cases, I put them through the mincer, right? And I'm prepared to have them on to give them a hard time and challenge them. You might agree or disagree with that, but they're all pretty volatile interviews. But I was able to challenge what I perceive to be their untruths. Right? I'll show you a clip of the Corbyn one to show you what I mean. Have a look at
You
this.
seem to be
Hang on,
over-concerned with...
With anti-Semitism?
No,
yeah.
no, I did not.
I am. Should Hamas stay in power? It's actually
you done yet?
It's actually a critical question.
Are you done yet?
It's a critical question.
Are you done yet?
No, it's the question.
Are you done yet?
Should they stay in power?
Are you done yet?
This country says they're a terror group. Do you agree? And should they stay in
Listen,
power?
I do not approve, support, or welcome Hamas.
Are you prepared to call Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational
You can't,
discussion
can you?
with you? Is it possible? Come on, answer that
You
question.
can't, can you?
You answer it.
No, it's my show. You answer my question. Now, the point of playing that clip, other than to entertain you, as I'm sure it did, is that, yes...
I hate that clip. I hate everything about that clip.
Why do you hate it?
I hate it because I don't like Jeremy Corbyn, but I think he's a bombastic prick, but I also think that you should have let him finish speaking. Why? Because then he would express bad ideas. That's why I support freedom of speech.
But actually, in the end, I could tell very quickly he was never going to give an answer, and therefore we were in a game of cat and mouse, which went on so long that the viewer was left in no uncertain terms what his answer actually was. Because otherwise, you just say Hamas are a terror group.
Crowder almost gives me like contrarian vibes. Like he's just looking for where he can like disagree.
It's not difficult. And in fact, 2 days later, he admitted Hamas are a terror group. That was his position. But only after I shamed him into doing it. So look, here's my question for you.
So that's it. So you want to shame people into agreeing with you?
No,
I would rather
all.
just let
not
them speak if they have bad ideas.
Not at all. I want to shame them into giving an honest opinion. What I will really lose my rag about, and I'm sure you must be the same, when people just obfuscate and don't give a straight answer to a straight, simple question, then I will go after them. If they give an honest answer, even if I don't agree with it, I respect that. And in fact, I think people who watch my show regularly will see that is my position, whether I agree with them or not. I have lots of people on I don't really agree with. But I find the ones that I have respect for are the ones who give a straight answer to a straight question. So let me ask you a straight question. Let me ask you a straight question.
Sure.
David Duke, the former...
Crowder's least favorite kind of question.
David Duke, the former KKK leader, he's banned from Twitter. Elon Musk hasn't.
Look at Crowder's face. Oh, you have to bring the KKK up. Come on, dude. You realize they're like separate from conservatives, right? Like we disagree on a lot of things. Like they think black people are subhuman. I think black people are just like a little lesser than human. You know, like we're like a big difference apart, pal.
Should he be allowed to be back on X?
Throw that at me. Really? You just say, I want to ask someone a straight question.
Really? You're going to ask me a question that legitimately challenges my principles? F you, Pierce.
You have me here. I'm basically a specter. I don't appear on anyone. You want to ask me about David Duke?
So bad.
Because he's banned from Twitter.
Should David Duke be allowed back on X?
Yes.
I'm not as familiar with David.
Should David Duke be allowed on X Hamster? That is the question being asked.
I'm not as familiar with David Duke as I am with Alex, which is why I was able to point out that you cannot prove that he knowingly lied about anything.
No.
If David Duke has called for the violence, look, if David Duke has called for the violence, actions of violence against minority groups, then no. If David Duke has espoused horrible points of view that can be refuted, by the way, not only by other people who are on X, but by the community notes on X, and on a platform where people are free to speak on both sides of the aisle, then yes. It doesn't mean that I think he's anything other than a racist prick.
So I'm trying to work out whether you...
Can I make one?
So if you think, the question that I feel like it needs to be asked is, if you think this guy is a racist prick, do you think that giving him a platform in which he can spread these racist ideals to as many people as possible is a good thing or a bad thing?
Can I make one point that I think is this is really, and hopefully we can agree on this, because I actually disagree with you that Elon Musk can do whatever he wants with his own platform. It comes down to this. I think, and if you look at the historical record, I think it is far more dangerous for society to engage in a culture of censorship, of viewpoint discrimination, than it is to allow people to speak freely, barring the committing of violent crimes. I think that we see
Why? Can you elaborate further, Crowder? Why? Why is it better to have a society in which everybody can say the N-word and talk about how black people are like degenerate, subhuman criminals? Why is that better than an environment in which private companies say, hey, if you're going to be on my private platform, you're not allowed to call black people the N-word. You're not allowed to say that black people are criminal. You're not allowed to say these things. Why does the censorship lead to a negative, whereas the allowing of racist ideals, loud and proud, how does that not lead to a harm?
I think that we see a far worse dystopia in our future if we allow the government and these big tech platforms to determine who can speak and who cannot. And we've seen some very clear examples of this.
Who can speak and who cannot. That's how it works right now. Just like if I have a car dealership and I have somebody that comes in and starts screeching the N-word in the corner of my car dealership, I can kick them out. Because freedom of speech is not relevant here. Because it's a private company.
I don't think they have the right to, for example, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Here's why. They benefit from Section 230. Now, I know you have a lot of fans in the UK. They may not be familiar with this. Let me explain what it means. They're basically treated like public utilities, meaning that they have immunity from liability for someone saying something on their platform. For example, AT&T here in the States can't ban you from their phone service because your racist Aunt Tilly drops an N-bomb after a few drinks at Thanksgiving. They're a public utility. These big tech platforms are treated as platforms where they are not legally liable for what is permitted, but that allows...
That's because you realize that if you got rid of Section 230, you would have an increase in censorship? Crowder? You drinking buffoon? Do you not realize that by getting rid of Section 230, you would unironically make it so that now these tech platforms are held liable for everything said on their platform? That's going to lead to an even bigger increase in a crackdown on what you can and can't say. I don't think Twitter should be held liable if Hamas uploads some gruesome, gory video of them, like, beheading somebody. Twitter shouldn't be held liable for that. Section 230 provides those protections. That's it.
There is no accountability. For example, the Hunter Biden laptop story,
Yep.
which we know, and this is why I make
The
all
Hunter Biden laptop story. This is like the conservatives' one thing, dude. This is like their anime pillow that they bring to bed every night. The Hunter Biden laptop story, where Twitter censored a story for like, what, 4 to 5 hours because it contained within it information that would have been doxing, and then they stopped censoring it and let it trend freely. Like this is the conservatives' only thing.
references publicly available because I want to be held to account, and I will be held to account, would have changed the election. If the government was not, and when I say colluding, I mean Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Kamala Harris, Karen Jean-Pierre, calling for the removal of Joe Rogan from Spotify, calling for the removal of vaccine scientists, by the way, of mRNA vaccines.
Wait, if you're in a government position, are you no longer given freedom of speech? Maybe you don't go and ban them. Maybe you don't use your power to ban them. Doesn't sound like they did. They have free speech. They're allowed to say what they think should happen.
If all information was allowed to be transmitted freely, like the platforms, as they are treated under our legal precedent here and Section 230, guess what? Donald Trump would be president. I'm saying this as a matter of record and fact.
Mad cope, dude. If we got rid of like Section 230, you know, that Donald Trump would literally be president right now. Mad cope.
Millions of people would not have gotten the mRNA vaccine, specifically men under 30, and lockdowns would have lasted.
I got the vaccine, and even if I knew everything that later came out about the vaccine, I would still 125% be the first person in line to get the mRNA vaccine. Anybody who wouldn't get it is still a retarded idiot.
That is irrefutable, but you had the government and these platforms deciding which views were allowed and which views weren't. And I don't think I should be allowed, you should be allowed, and certainly not the government colluding with 5 companies who control over 90% of the information in the digital sphere. It is terrifying to me.
You know
so you
what?
may think I'm an absolutist. I think I'm reasonable.
No, I don't. I actually don't think that's unreasonable at all. In fact, I have written numerous columns about the outrage of the New York Post having that initial expose of Hunter Biden's laptop censored by Twitter, as it was then, for 2 weeks right before the 2020 election. I said, focus on that, because that probably swung the election, because it stopped the media investigating properly what was going on with Hunter Biden in Ukraine and what his father's involvement would be. I think that could have swung the election. So I absolutely agree with you.
Let me give you a funny story about it. And not only could it, it would have, according to Dr. Epstein. Do you realize? Now, I'm a comedian, right? This show, that's why I appreciate you said, hey, you got to chuckle.
You're a comedian? The first funniest joke Crowder has ever made in his life.
From our segment. Some of it is tongue in cheek. And I appreciate that you recognize that and not try and use, you acknowledge that it's a joke, whether it's funny or not. So as a comedian, the host of a comedy show, Rudy Giuliani was on this show. And the first time the public ever saw Hunter Biden's laptop was on this show. He brought it up. He goes, I have the laptop here. The FBI came, they searched my offices. They took everything but the laptop. I go, wait. Is that the Hunter Biden laptop? He said, yes. Episode is banned. Suspended from YouTube. Think about that. Think of how terrifying that is. It was an accident.
It's wrong.
How terrifying is that? I would love to see that episode. I would just love to know, like, what was actually in that episode. Was it genuinely you just like, hey, let's take a look at this laptop as this is a story that's developing? Or was it like, Joe Biden is in on it. He literally knows. He's in on the conspiracy. Don't hug me, I'm scared. Like, was it one of those things? Or was it like a simple, like, let's take a look at the laptop kind of thing? I highly doubt it was a fair and balanced view of anything, though.
It's wrong. Let me ask you, though. Yesterday on your show, you appeared wearing a T-shirt saying Alex Jones was right, changed my mind. So my question is, what was he right about?
Thank you.
Oh, gosh, how much time do you have?
Well, are you talking about Sandy Hook?
No, I'm not talking about Sandy Hook. He said he was.
So what about all the things he was wrong about? Listen, this is the thing. If you're a conspiracy theorist who, like, throws shit at the wall every time something happens, right? Like, a school shooting happens. You're like, it's fake. Like, COVID happens. It's fake. Another school shooting happens. It's fake. Eventually, like, one of them, maybe you'll be closer to the truth there, right? And when you get closer to the truth, if you claim everything is fake and you're wrong 95% of the time, but then that 5% sliver, you're like closer to being right, that maybe there was like something more involved or people were holding back information and shit like that, then you all of a sudden act like, I'm Alex Jones and I was right. I predicted it, man. I called the future. It's like, no, if you just say everything's gonna go wrong every time, and then like 2 out of the 10 times things go wrong, you don't get to be like, well, I said they'd go wrong. I called it, buddy.
He said he was wrong about Sandy Hook.
Right.
He
Eventually,
apologized for Sandy Hook.
when he was sued, he said he was wrong.
Eventually, but I'm saying obviously the shirt wouldn't be.
After he was sued and had to pay like hundreds of millions of dollars. Listen, everybody, I'm starting to realize now that I was wrong, because it's going to cost me money if I keep on lying.
Addressing that, if it's he says I was wrong, it would be awfully daft.
But
of me
what
to
are
wear a shirt
you
saying he was right about
alluding
something.
to then?
I'm alluding to, for crying out loud, if you talk about intelligence agencies spying on Americans, if you talk about what we've done with South American countries as allowing the spread of STDs, for which Hillary Clinton apologized for, if you talk about nation building where there have been
What? Did you know that America is to blame for the spread of herpes in Africa? It's like, what?
If you talk about nation building where there have been underhanded deals with nations who don't have our best interests at heart, I mean, it's, you know, take your pick. I don't believe that, for example, George W. Bush was next to the Twin Towers with an Acme plunger. No, I'm not that kind of a conspiracy theorist. But when
I believe that. I absolutely believe that.
Jones said, look, you are going to be corralled into social media ghettos and lose your right to speak. He was right. He's right about a lot. And I will say this. He's been wrong about plenty. I am not here to defend
being like super hyperbolic. Eventually they're gonna put us in camps for even speaking our mind. Gets banned on Twitter. See, I called it. Are you holding a dog up to me right now?
He's been wrong about plenty. I am not here to defend everything that Alex Jones has ever said. I'm willing to defend everything that I have said on my program. But that man is exactly who you would expect him to be. And when everyone else tucked tail and they ran, I'm not going to do that. I'll tell him he's wrong. I'll tell you where I think he's wrong. But that man has a right to speak, just like I believe you have the right to speak. And Pierce, if you think they're not going to come for you, oh my word, do you have another thing coming? And I hope that you don't.
Newsflash, okay? You can be pro-free speech and also against speech that incites violence or spreads bigotry or contributes to the spread of conspiracy theories related to a bunch of children who were massacred in a school shooting being stunt doubles or being crisis actors, this kind of thing. You can have both. It's not one or the other, Crowder.
I genuinely hope that you don't.
Well,
I mean, I've had people say that I was a hate speaker because I said soccer was gay. I do. I think so.
You think
I mean, I think you're gay, Crowder, but like, I'm not bigoted.
You think soccer's gay?
Homosexual, yes.
Yeah, like you're literally spending your whole day like putting your foot against balls, dude. Like how f***ing gay.
You know what? That's a whole other debate, Stephen Crowder. Let's have a debate about whether soccer is gay. And if it is, by the way, I would be happy to embrace its
Soccer is turning the frogs gay. True.
homosexual side.
Well, I know you would. I know you would. But with that accent, you have to be careful. People take you seriously. I think it's great. I think it's great if you're a 6-year-old girl or a homosexual from Greece, to quote Nick DiPaolo.
Yeah, you know the difference in our football and your football? We don't wear helmets to protect ourselves. I think ultimately we agree about more things with free speech than we disagree. But let's keep the debate going. Thank you for joining me.
Merry Christmas, Piers. I appreciate it.
Angie, all the best.
Merry Christmas, Crowder. I hope you have fun dunking dog into your eggnog.